Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lever Movement Podcast. My name is Evan Schwartz, host for the show. Today I am thrilled to be joined by Rachel Olson. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty great. Can't complain. Thank you for
Awesome.
having me, though.
Absolutely. I'm super pumped to hear not only all about how you got into triathlon, because I think I've talked about this in one of our past recent episodes. I, do mainly running, a little bit of biking here and there. Swimming terrifies me. But hearing all the intensity and the balance and all that stuff, it is so fascinating to me. And then I feel like in the triathlon space, you have a lot of experience trying different things, and we'll talk all about your experience with Lever towards the end and everything too. But for now, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then we'll talk about how you kind of got started in triathlon and everything?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, my name is Rachel Olson. I live in Boulder, Colorado. So actually I'm in like right around the corner from Lever, which is super nice. But I'm actually born and raised in Houston, Texas. And then I've been swimming and running my whole life. I mean, swimming definitely took over. I've, dabbled in water polo, volleyball. But swimming was always, the thing. I started when I was like 4 years old, and swam in college, and then picked up running again in college and joined the cross country team. So yeah, I've been active my whole life. I spent most of my life in the South, but yeah, Boulder just kind of drew me in here. And yeah, so just trying to take all advantage of the youth of I guess of sports, and really try to chase this athletic dream to its fullest.
Yeah. So starting off with swimming, I feel like I've heard, triathletes come from different areas, right? Like you
Mhm.
have a runner that might get hurt and has to cross train, find out they like biking and then swimming and stuff,
Yeah.
or somebody like yourself who starts out swimming. What was your kind of journey getting started? You mentioned a bunch of other sports, but what was the first
Yeah.
time you thought, hey, triathlon could be something that I would want to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like I said, I have been swimming and running basically my whole life. And I think starting in high school, my mom and I, we had the NBC Sports Gold, and I apologize if my cat jumps on me and interrupts this, but so we would watch, kind of those like the short course races and Kona on just on TV. And I've also had shoulder surgery, my first one, at the end of my, senior season in high school of swimming. And my PT was actually, training for Ironman Texas. And, that was still a huge race at the time. And, she was my same build. It's not very common to see, especially in swimming. Like, I'm one of the shortest people in like a very competitive field. So, she was a swimmer. We're very similar size. She had same like shoulder injuries, and I was like, oh my God, like she's an Ironman. Like, I want to do that. Like, she's so cool. She drove this little red sports car. And so I was like just really intrigued by it, but I had signed to go swim in college, and so I wasn't quite sure how that was going to go. And then I also had a swim coach who was training for his first Ironman and ended up getting hit and killed by a car on a run. And I was like, one day I'm going to do an Ironman for him. And then of course, like swimming took over, cross country took over. And like, I don't really know how to get into this, but my junior year of college, we actually had a club team, a triathlon club team. And so the college, the guy that ran it, he said, if we get you a bike, would you try it? And I'm like, absolutely, sure. I will absolutely do this. I haven't, ridden a bike in a long time, but like, let's do this. So, after that junior season of swimming got done, I had started to train a little bit. And yeah, I just did my first triathlon in the summer of 2013. It was just like a little sprint with a pool swim. And because I literally was still in my college career, I won the entire sprint race because it was like a longer swim, and I was hooked. Like, I loved it. I still had to finish another year of swimming and cross country, but after that I knew, like, yeah, I'm gonna definitely do this, like continue to do this as soon as I graduate.
Did you feel like after, going out and smoking the competition and winning your first one, that while you were finishing the rest of your career, that triathlon bug was kind of like in the back of your head and just kind of like looming over there? Or were you able to kind of focus in on the other stuff you were kind of committed to already?
Yeah, I mean, I was super hyper focused on swimming at the time.
Hmm.
You know, cross country was just more fun, to be honest. Good, cross training and everything, but you know, I was so focused on like the swim season that, biking wasn't really like I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but I once I graduated, that's when, that kind of like kicked in, and I stayed swimming with our club program. That I had swum with, in the summers in college. But yeah, it wasn't until I really graduated school that then, the focus switched, because I was just too focused on that final season.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started with some of the shorter course stuff, which I imagine
Mhm.
not everybody jumps into the 70.3 and the
Yeah.
Ironman stuff. What was your progression after you finished, your swim career and the collegiate career? What was kind of your progression into maybe dipping your toes into the what is it, the open water swimming instead of the
Yeah.
pool starts and stuff? What did that kind of look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually did a half relatively quickly, I would say. I didn't think, that like the short course route was really one for me. Like I feel like it's very hard to get into the programs, there's not a ton of like short course and
Mhm.
everything. And I kind of like cannonballed into my first half. I don't think I was quite ready for it. I think my longest run was 9 or 10 miles. I still finished in like 5:19, which somebody was like, "Oh my god, that's an incredible time." And I was like, "I wanted to go under 5 hours." Like, but yeah, so it was. I had done a couple of short races, but we had a really cool community, like an actual like really strong tri community. I was in Shreveport, Louisiana. And there was, a couple of like more like Olympic distancey races in open water in the surrounding areas. And so I did a couple of those in the summer. Did the first half at Austin 70.3 October of 2014. And then, kind of, stayed a little, did some half, some like just local stuff. And it wasn't until probably 2016 that I started focusing more like strictly on like let's go on this half journey and see. And I had started working at Cobb Cycling, which is a saddle company. And so I was really in the industry all like at that point, like really, just kind of ingrained into everything. We all trained together. My boss was wanting to help develop me as an athlete. And, so I had big exposure to the sport right away. And 2016 was when I really focused on, let me see like, what I can do in the halves. And then 2017, I won, I think like 3 amateur races overall. And that's, at the end of that year was like, okay, I think it's time to take the next step. But yeah, it was a really steady, honestly. Like there's some people who like cannonball right into like pro field and like everything. But I was like really, I took my time. It was a pretty like step by step process for
Hmm.
me.
What I'm imagining, you're literally cannonballing into these open water starts. Is that something that you incorporate, or do you do the normal run in and dive and stuff, or do you actually cannonball into the water?
I actually had done my first open water swim when I was like swimming club. We had like it's called a zones meet,
Mhm.
but they were like, "Oh, at the end of our swim meet, there's actually an open water competition." I think I was like 14 or 15, and I was like, "Sure." And they're like, "You have to Vaseline like your ankles so people don't pull on you, and like Vaseline your shoulders because of the salt water." And so that was like my first exposure to it. And I mean, thankfully I had like growing up in Texas, like you spend a lot of time in lakes and everything, but I actually prefer to deep water start. I don't
Mm,
like running in starts because we had mentioned like I played water polo and I was the person who swims to get the ball whenever they drop the ball in the center. So you don't get to push off the wall in those
right,
situations. You are from a dead start. So
right.
I think that actually has helped me in these like open, like deep open water starts. But, you know, I would prefer to either dive in, maybe not cannonball, but yeah, either dive in or start from a flat start. I don't like running into the water necessarily.
Totally, totally. I'm curious because you mentioned a couple different locations. How did you end up in Boulder, Colorado? Like you mentioned, just around the corner
Yeah.
from us here, because we're also in Boulder. But
Yeah.
what was your sort of roundabout path to get to Colorado?
Yeah, I was, like I had said, I was working for Cobb Cycling at the time. And in 2016, I went to Kona for the first time, you know, with the company. We weren't really working a booth, but we were kind of just alongside the Leahy Drive, which is like the main drag of everybody, you know, it's worldwide, you
Hmm.
know, known in the triathlon community. And I fell in love with it. And actually, my boss was really close with Siri Lindley and Rebecca Keat. You know, they're very well known in the community. And like she was one of the best coaches, you know, at the time. And I just like I fell in love with like everything. And so that I then, reached out to her later in the year and I said, you know, would you be interested in coaching me? I knew she only took on specific people. And so I had done a camp in 2017 and 2018 with her. Um, and then finally decided like, you know, she lives here in Boulder as well. And so coming to Boulder, like every time we came, like I was like, this place is just magical. Like it's incredible. And finally I was like, if I really want to do this,
Hmm.
I think I have to just go and
Hmm.
do it. Like I otherwise I'm going to sit on my butt for I don't know how long and maybe I won't even move here. So I honestly like just picked up my stuff and I said I have to make this happen and I got to do it right now. And I think it was the best choice for me. It just like it was just calling to me and I had to say like this is the path that is calling me and pulling me and I really want to go.
Hmm. Aside from it being magical and having those nice mountain views, what is one of the benefits or a couple of the benefits about being in a place like Colorado for training specifically at the level that
Yeah.
you're training at, and then also being able to get you to that next step and next step and next step too?
Yeah, I mean, the environment is crazy. Like you can every time you go out the door, you're seeing pro runners, you're seeing, you know, top level triathletes, you're seeing, I mean, it's all kinds of athletes, you know, pro cyclists, pro mountain bikers.
Hmm.
I mean, it's crazy. Like I feel like you feel the energy of a very active community. It's just totally different. And then the fact that there are so many people. Like I do train with a group with the Julie Dibbins crew now. And while our group is incredibly wonderful and like incredibly valuable for me to train with, there are also so many people. You know, if we don't have something going on in the group, I can just like ask one of my other friends, ask one of my other friends. And there's so many people to link up with. There's no, no limit to your resources in terms of who you can be with, who you can train with, and honestly, like you can go up the mountains, you can go flat, you can go rolling. There's so much variety that people I don't think they think like Boulder mountains, but like we have such a variety of everything here that makes it just so easy to do.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. From my little spins up left hand canyon, I can see
Yeah.
everybody on their aero bars and stuff. Every single day, every hour of the day. It seems like.
Oh yeah.
So I find it really interesting because maybe a lot of people that will listen to this maybe don't have experience being in a training group and being able to structure
Mhm.
that training with other people. What does let's just say a typical week look like for you without getting into, the 25 sessions and like the exact stuff?
Yeah.
What is your sort of general layout if you're maybe preparing for competition?
Yeah, it's nice because we kind of have like a pretty like stable week
Mhm.
where every week it's kind of the same format. Monday is always active recovery day, whether you're just swimming, just lever running, or just riding. Those are usually I have one or two of those or nothing at all Monday. Tuesday, we in our group we call it Terrible Tuesday. We have a very hard run session, a very hard swim session, and then like an activation bike session. So that's like boom, 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 boom. Like you kind of get like hit in the face for 3 hours,
Right.
right in the morning. Wednesday, always like a long ride and a more recovery or open water swim. Thursday is another early hard run session, another hard swim session. And then I've now added like a afternoon lever run as a double run. And then Friday is, typically a more like spicy, as we call it, like a spicy bike session, interval session, and like a faster swim session. Saturday, always, big ride, maybe a runoff, maybe a swim, and then Sunday, long run, maybe a swim, and then some strength sprinkled in there.
Wow, I am exhausted just hearing about it. But I'm curious. You mentioned lever, and we'll talk about that in just a second too. But how do you find maybe the balance has changed over the past few years, and like your experience getting better at being able to handle training, being able to translate that to racing too? But how do you manage balancing all those activities? What are maybe some go-to recovery things, or just your mental organization of balancing everything that you're doing each week?
Yeah. I think I have a little bit of a leg up in terms of balancing a heavy training load, because I mean, I was training, 20 plus hours a week in just swimming, which honestly sounds crazy to me looking back, because like my 20-hour weeks now, I'm just like trashed. I'm like, how did I do this in college? Like for 4 years. But yeah, so I feel like I understand, that kind of workload. But whenever I was working a little bit more kind of that like full time, it was very difficult to say like, okay, which ones are priority? Which ones should I do in the morning? Which ones should I save for at night? And I think the biggest one for me is knowing where my boundaries lie and really trusting my body. Like if something doesn't feel right, understanding that, okay, maybe this needs to be a different session, or maybe I need to cut this session short, and communicating with my coach about that. But it's, we get our plan, pretty well in advance, and I can just look at that and say, okay, well, I know I have to do this, then set up like all of my food, like what should I have for food. We, my boyfriend and I typically have like set days where we have, takeout days where we know we're going to be too tired to cook, so we don't want to clean dishes. So yeah, it's all of that. And then understanding that I needed, a PT that was going to work with me on strength, on stability, like you said, we'll get into how I've really started with lever. But yeah, my PT, Caitlin Alexander, was like incredible, and, helping me through a lot of, injury stress and all of that. And just making sure that I'm a more robust human, in terms of that kind of thing. And I do massage probably every 10 days, sometimes once a week. And then, of course, you have to do some stuff on your own, which sucks. But, there are other little things, daily activations. You see runners doing drills all the time, bands and foam rollers and all of this. And so there's lots of little things sprinkled in all over.
And that's another 20 hours a week of just recovery from the
Right,
20
yeah.
hours a week of training. Let's maybe turn into how you got started with Lever 2. You mentioned your PT. And can you just kind of give us maybe the situation you were in, and then kind of resources you were looking for, and why you settled on Lever? And then we'll talk a little bit about how you use it in your training now too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like lever kind of popped up on my radar right at the perfect time. Like it really came about I was struggling with a stress reaction. And I hadn't really known lever at the time. And so wasn't doing a whole lot of running or assisted running. I was doing like lever or water running. And, and then, I started to build back up at the beginning of 2021. And I ended up finding out that I had a hole in the cartilage in my femur head. So it was, about yay big, like a centimeter by half a centimeter hole in the cartilage where I was bone on bone. And at that point, it was April, May of 2021. So the season literally just started. I had literally just started building up again. And I just started working with Julie, and we looked at each other and I said, I'm not ready to have surgery right now. I am not strong enough to say like, yes, I can come back in and like pound a recovery. So I said, let's put a surgery off until the fall.
Mhm.
Let's do as much as we can. And at that point, that was when, I hit biking really hard, but I also got a lever system
Mhm.
because I couldn't full body weight. I was literally bone on bone. I was running the risk of having more cartilage flake off, potentially creating a stress fracture, where I was bone on bone if I was to continue doing full body weight. And so to be able to like comfortably and safely build up run mileage, I ended up racing a couple of times, while basically only running on the lever. And it was like excellent. And, I ended up having the surgery, in the fall, and coming back from that was like immediately, yeah, on the lever. I stayed a lot of time on the lever because we held me back just a little bit to make sure everything had incorporated. And like without it, like I would have died if I had to stay like water running, and of course, like I did, like it was like, oh, I'm on the lever again. But it's without it, like what else was I gonna do? I wasn't gonna be able to run. So it was like hugely, valuable in terms of letting me build strength to be strong enough for a recovery. A lot of people forget that aspect of a surgery is like, I wanted to be strong enough to really bounce back quickly. And
Mhm.
I was able to keep run mileage up because I was still, using the lever to help me build all of that. And then to have it, post surgery to adjust the weight, to add weight on, and to have kind of that smooth consistency and not having to schedule an alter G session. Like all I have to do is pull it with me and travel with me. And like that is just the convenience of it is just, leaps and bounds, like helpful.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. One thing that I'm kind of curious because about is that some people, not everybody, but some people come to finding bodyweight support training when they're coming back from an injury or they're rehabbing or they're trying to find something to fit in their training situation, that makes it easier to be able to handle that training and that
Yeah.
impact and that load. And when you get healthy again, there's that question of like, yeah, what am I doing now? Like, what the heck,
Yeah.
am I doing with this system that I bought? How have you found? You took us through your sample week, but how have you found, convenience in incorporating it in your normal training routine now that you are, post surgery and you're getting back into the training and competing season and stuff? But how have
Yeah.
you incorporated it going forward after that?
Yeah, like so right now I actually do look forward to it now because my legs are so tired from building up everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so having that double run session, I wouldn't, especially, I mean, like, yes, I am still building back after surgery, but literally, like, everyone in our squad has like a double run day where the second run is on the lever because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our bodies are so beat down most of the time that, you're almost constantly on the edge of being really fit or something breaking down. And so that's where, if you're trying to build up run mileage comfortably, safely, a lot of people, can't handle, that much load on the body and do it, adding in, a double run day where the second run is on a lever, I think is so great. And then also my recovery run is on the lever, which is so nice because like at first I was like, oh, I have to go on the lever. And then after a couple of weeks, I'm like, thank God my recovery run is on the lever because I don't know if my legs can handle going out on the road for this. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just like now I welcome it so much because like it just keeps you more refreshed. Like you can keep your turnover high and on a recovery run like that, whereas you may kind of lag a little bit on the road. Like I know like my turnover on the road on a recovery run, if I'm really tired from the weekend, is just like my turnover is going to be probably pretty bad. And you know, stomping around, but then I can get on the lever and like have a pure recovery run where I'm a little bit lighter, a little bit quicker tempo, and then being able to feel just that much more fresh, but still having the ability to build up mileage. Because at the end of the day, you know, what we do, like, we need mileage. Like, everybody that's training for an Ironman, for a half Ironman, like, you, at the end of the day, you need the mileage, and you don't have to do it in a way that's so, you know, hard on yourself. Like, you, like I said, I basically went all of 2021 almost exclusively on the lever, and I still ran a 40-minute 10K with, you know, I mean, I wouldn't advise you to do that on broken cartilage, but you know, you can do it. Like, it makes a lot of things more possible, and can,
Mm-hmm.
you know, keep you more healthy in the long term without risking that injury, you know, more consistently, because you're just doing too much. You're trying too much on the road. And, I think it's just so vastly helpful for something like that. Like, just adding in comfortable, easy, you know, not so heavy load on your legs.
Right, totally. It's interesting you say that, and the point I really like that you made is that when you're using it for a recovery run, you're not
Yeah.
going outside and using poor form or lower cadence
Yeah.
and just like struggling through a run because you simply need the volume. Because
Yeah.
like you stated too, you need the volume, you need the mileage. What was
Mhm.
kind of your mindset when you first started incorporating lever, and you know, had the run on the treadmill, but then maybe did you have a mindset shift and say, this is a training tool that I'm leaning into and seeing the benefit of, rather than being like focused and just having to run on the treadmill?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially in kind of that recovery, and also while I was still injured, there were times where I'm like, oh, like, I'm just like stuck on this. But there were those like mindset shifts where I'm like, I wouldn't be doing a, you know, like a speed session at this
Mm-hmm.
point in my recovery if, you know, on the road.
Right.
But I'm here doing a speed session now on the lever. Like, I'm learning how to have that quick turnover. I'm learning how to really like have good form and everything else. Like, and I would not physically would not have been able to do that on the road at the time. And that was, you know, for me, you just have to look at it with like so much gratitude of like, I wouldn't be doing this, and, you know, regularly.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and you find ways, like, thankfully, like, YouTube is like so good, you know, like, there's so much content that come, you know, out of the COVID era. Like, YouTube is so good, like, to like throw on the treadmill, and like, I just stay so occupied. There's just so many things to watch or to do, stay motivated. But yeah, just having that like mindset of being so grateful that yes, I am running. I am still running right now. It's not like I'm not running. I'm not on
Mm-hmm.
an elliptical. I'm not on like a recumbent bike. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually like doing the thing
Right.
and getting through it. So that, like, you know, that just kept me going, of, you know, just being grateful that I could actually do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in our last three questions, and they're all
Yeah.
relatively quick ones. You mentioned the different types of run sessions you did, and you gave us your sample week. Could you give us just maybe a quick example of your favorite type of like swim workout, bike workout, and run workout?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my favorite swim workouts like usually start with like a really good variety warm up. I still like love to mix in like IM work, because I was a butterflyer and 200 IMer. You know, and so being able to mix in strokes and everything and different drills, like, and then I really do like having, you know, some fast, I like fast Fridays,
Mm.
you know, where we have a little bit longer rest, but that it's like a lot harder. um I don't necessarily love threshold stuff, but we did a really cool set that was like, you know, you blast out some max 100s, and then we had to swim, you know, for 10 minutes straight at like threshold. And like, that was something totally different and so cool. Like, I think I will really love that in the future.
Hmm.
Um, and on the bike, like, I'm learning to love kind of mountain riding. I
Mm.
didn't love it in the past, but one of my favorite workouts historically is kind of what I would call like a team time trial type like simulation, where, you know, you have, it's, I mean, you can also call them over unders, where you have like 1 or 2 minutes like over your threshold, and then you drop down for more time, like 4 to 5 minutes at under your threshold. So, and then you have to navigate through up and down, like, for 12 minutes or something like that. I love like that variety. But honestly, like, people will call me crazy. They do. We have these Friday hard bike sessions on Zwift, and they're like, why are you on Zwift if the weather's nice? I'm like, we have a group, but also like it's like a really hard session usually. And knowing that like I'm there pushing the limits with, other people, it's just kind of that environment. And I surprise myself every time. And I just like love that it's like a super uber smash fest, and like our coach is there with us. I'm like, I don't care where I am, I know I'm pushing the crap out of myself, and I love it. Like, it's so much fun, even though it's really hard. And then running, like, honestly, I used to love like road sessions that were like 1K repeats or like 800s. Honestly, it's been such a long time that like I haven't done like pure run workouts on the road, that I'm like refinding what I love. But we did like mile repeats last week, and I really enjoyed that. Historically, I don't love like long tempo, but I probably should do that.
Right.
Yeah, so those are some of my favorites. I really like hills and everything on the run as well. I think just like running up a mountain or anything, those are always like they're just so different, and so like, and so good for you too for strength. But
Yeah, it sounds like you're embracing a lot of those strength aspects too, which I
yeah.
imagine tend to pay dividends after a long, hard
Yes.
training block.
Yeah.
The other question I had before we get to your upcoming plans were, if you were talking to somebody and they had heard of lever and they were kind of skeptical or on the fence about introducing it into their training routine, is there like one point that you could simply tell them, hey, this is why you should consider, incorporating body weight support and lever into your running routine?
Yeah, for me, honestly, it's like there's so many people who have like questions like, oh, well, would this really be useful? I'm like, if you're training a lot, like there's so many uses that you can have for it. Like whether you're coming down with a niggle, whether you're really tired and you need, like, I mean, there's so many people who I think would benefit from like continuing like to keep their run mileage up, like we
Mm-hmm.
had said, like with the double runs and the easy runs, and being able to work on those, like all the little things on an easy run that they may not be able to, but just taking the load off and being overall a little bit more fresh. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think in triathlon, like there's a huge misconception that like more is more. And I'm like, it doesn't always, like, you should be a little bit more fresh than a little bit more beat down. Like you don't want to be totally gassed out all the time, and to have something that will keep you fit and just a little bit fresher from day to day is going to keep you healthier. You don't want to just have, one race and then be like totally, messed up, like
Mm-hmm.
because your body couldn't handle it. We do this because we love it, and I think it will just add so much more longevity to people's, it doesn't have to be that it's your career, but like everyday people get injuries, whether, running or something, it's something that you can just continue to do it longer and probably enjoy it a little bit better and work on all those little things where sometimes you just may be too tired to work on little things. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that's the biggest selling point for me. Like, you're looking at longevity. I don't think people get into the sport just to do one Ironman and get out. Like,
Totally, totally. And then, maybe that itch comes a month after, if they decide they don't want to follow up that race with
yeah.
everything. The last question I have is, what's next on the calendar for you? You're putting in all this hard work. You're using the lever a bunch. What is next for you, and what does this season look like for you?
Yeah, so my next race is going to be Mont Tremblant 70.3. We're just under 3 weeks now to that, and that will be my first 70.3 back from surgery. And honestly, I feel like it's like the restart of my career. Like my last 70.3 was, pretty horrendous. But so I've really, like, that's kind of like the restart, and I feel like it's this like new beginning. I've never done the race there. People have said it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm super excited about it. I think it'll be probably the best race courses I've been on, you know, just views wise. And yeah, from there we'll see, like, maybe dabbling with like how it goes. If I want to do Oregon 70.3, we'll probably do Boulder because it's, you
in your
know,
backyard pretty
it's
much.
like a mile away. And then I really want to do Cozumel 70.3, and yeah, we'll kind of see from there. We might actually, my boyfriend and I might do Challenge Florianopolis at the end of the year since he's from Brazil. And yeah, I just want to get started again and go from there. I do want to do an Ironman at some point. Not sure that it's ideal to do it this year, but I mean, it could happen. Maybe. Don't
It
tell
could
my
happen.
coach. Just
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm looking forward to having the lever for my first Ironman build because that's like, it's a lot of miles.
A lot of it's, you know what, double the distance of everything, so it tends
Yeah,
to be a
exactly.
little bit more work, a little bit more consistency and stuff.
Yeah.
I lied, actually. Last question: where can people
Yeah.
follow along if they want to follow your return to racing journey and future training stuff? Where can they follow along if they want to keep up to date with Rachel?
Yeah, for sure. My Instagram is the most active, and that's just Race Olson, Raceolson. And then my boyfriend and I also have a YouTube channel called Chasing Triathlon. We are getting back into the swing of things there. So those are like my two most active sites, I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Rachel, I want to thank you again so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck from the Lever team, and I know everybody listening is going to be rooting for you as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.